Today we are speaking with Denver Hollingsworth, VP of Marketing at OnBoard. Welcome, Denver.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Before we get started, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Denver Hollingsworth. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at a company called OnBoard. I have been in the marketing space, specifically multifamily technology marketing, my entire career. I started at a small company based out of Wilmington, North Carolina, where I'm based now, leading the marketing team there. We did managed Wi-Fi services, which is a flavor of a bulk internet deployment. We got acquired by Comcast in 19 and was there for several years. I transitioned over to OnBoard in 2023 as the leader of their marketing team and built that up over time. We got acquired by Conservice last year, and so now we're a joint offering under Conservice's umbrella. Conservice is utility management for multifamily and real estate owner operators. Real estate is an interesting market, very relationship driven, but that's what makes it enjoyable, is being able to form all those relationships and get to meet some really great people while you're working there.
Thanks. So I'm looking forward to learning more myself because this is an area that I don't traditionally focus in. To get us started, can you give us a quick overview of what bulk internet actually is, especially in the multifamily and single family rental space? Because a lot of people listening might not be aware of that, and why it's gaining so much momentum right now. It feels like a space that's finally having its moment. So what do you think is driving the shift?
Yeah, bulk internet, just as an overview, essentially internet deployed in bulk. And so what that means is an owner and operator will approach an internet service provider like a Comcast or a Spectrum, and they're purchasing that internet for all the units in their property in bulk. And so what a resident gets is they move in, they get that instant activation, that instant move-in ready connectivity experience. And the owner's paying for that in bulk, typically at a cheaper rate than a resident would retail. They may add on a technology amenity fee to that, and then they're serving that back to the residents included in their rent. So it's an offering the residents can get when they move in. Bulk internet can be deployed in different ways. The traditional deployment is unmanaged bulk internet, which is individual modems inside each unit broadcasting individually. The premium version of bulk internet is something called managed Wi-Fi, which is radios installed strategically across the property. So you have access in the common areas, the gym, the pool, and in the unit. More of a premium version for folks like student housing, senior housing, resort style properties. And the owner is paying that service for themselves and then adding that back to the resident. I think it's having a moment because for the resident, it offers that move-in ready connectivity experience. It gives them an essential service. For the owner, it modernizes the property, delivers a competitive edge, and also helps to increase their NOI through those amenity fees. And then for property site staff and property managers, it just adds less operational burden from their perspective. It's move-in ready, so they don't have to deal with technicians coming and going at the property. It's instant activation for those residents. And again, it's having a moment because connectivity is becoming essential. When I started marketing 10 or 11 years ago now in multifamily technology, bulk internet kind of was a concept people understood, but you kind of had to educate them on the benefits and the reasoning why you would offer internet to residents in general as an amenity. After COVID, that surge of people working from home, needing essential, reliable internet to do their jobs inside their apartment units was a big kind of accelerator of the need for bulk internet. It's moved from really a luxury offering to an essential offering. National Multifamily Housing Council, they're a big organization, the largest in this space for multifamily. They release a report, renter preferences report every year. And this year, internet was number 3 above in-unit laundry. And so it is becoming as essential as traditional utilities in many ways, which is why you're seeing kind of that shift towards it.
I think for me, internet would be just a given right now. You're absolutely right. We all need it. But the in-unit laundry is an absolute must as well.
Yeah, it's funny because the internet ranks above many amenities that you would think would be, number 1, number 2. And it just speaks to how essential it is and how necessary connectivity is for people of all demographics.
So knowing that it really is a necessity and that many of your buyers aren't typically technical people, how are you approaching educating property owners, the operators and developers about the value of their offering without overwhelming them with all the tech jargon?
Great question. First, we aim to simplify. We are the middleman between the internet service provider or the technology provider and the property owner, the community. And so we help navigate those complexities for them without without an OnBoard in place, without that third-party management partner, and the owners doing it themselves, they often do not have the resources to do this themselves. They don't have the expertise to be able to know how to structure telecom contracts, to play these programs. There's a lot of expertise involved in that space. And so we aim to simplify a lot of those pieces. Most of my career has been taking pretty technical concepts like managed Wi-Fi or bulk internet and simplifying them and getting them in terms that people understand, especially in the real estate space. And I think what we do on the marketing side with that is we lead with the benefits, which are for an owner, increased NOI, better competitive advantage, a better resident experience, move-in ready connectivity. We're trying to lead with those benefits and communicate the goal or the outcomes of a bulk internet model. But we don't only do bulk internet. We partner with other service providers like smart home tech providers to do things like smart home packages, typically combined with internet, to do things like streaming TV packages, typically combined with internet. And so we're serving as kind of the partner there. But yeah, we try to lead with the benefits. And then we also have a platform, a technology amenity management platform that provides owners visibility into the success of those programs. So again, communicating via the outcomes. So versus an owner getting in there and seeing all the network usage and bandwidth and things that are, important, but a little bit difficult to understand, we're providing how this program is tracking and actually delivering increased ROI.
What I'm hearing is you put a lot of effort into building messaging that really communicates the benefits and the value. And as a marketer, how are you incorporating these messages and proof points into building awareness and driving demand in a relationship heavy industry? Are there any campaigns or tactics that stood out for you? What's worked and what have you found that didn't work so well?
Yeah, great question. I think this is a really relationship driven industry. So first things first, when I began at OnBoard, I wanted to leverage the existing relationships that OnBoard had. OnBoard has existed since 2017. So it had been, obviously operational for several years, and we had some really great clients that I was able to touch base with. That was my number one priority when I began because it is such a relationship driven industry, feedback and testimonials from the peers of those folks in that industry are huge. And so our first big project really was a case study opportunity that we did with a client of ours, where we actually traveled down there to the property. We did really nice video, sleek video that we filmed interviews with each of the folks, residents, site staff, property owners, asset managers, kind of all the folks who would be our ideal customers. Created a video out of that and then used that video in a variety of ways. Obviously, a campaign based on the case study video itself, web page material, digital content. So that was a huge kind of first step. Our employees at the companies that we work with often have a perception of our product and our offering that may not be in line with what our customers' perception is of what we actually offer. And so sometimes I think you can get far into the weeds and kind of lose objective sight of what the actual benefit is to customers. So our marketing team really tries to interact with those customers as much as possible, hear feedback from them on a weekly or a cadence that we set. We've done a lot of work on gathering testimonials, whether they're good or bad, to understand what our value prop is, and then putting those testimonials in campaigns. That has historically been definitely the most successful campaigns that we have done, are ones that we're leveraging our existing customer base to speak to our value, which in some cases is different than what we thought our value was initially.
And have you seen any trends in driving new business? Are you getting any referrals through all of this?
I will say, prior to me starting at OnBoard, there was no marketing department, really. So the majority of the business was referrals. And so that kind of culture had already been ingrained with some of our customers. And then we were just taking and amplifying those voices a bit more than they had in the past. And so we still get a lot of business from different folks who are recommending us or who are referring us to their peers within the industry. Also, one of our big strategies is leveraging the thought leadership of the experts that we have on our team. For example, we are attending the National Apartment Association's trade show in June, which is the largest event of the year in our space. And we have a coveted panel opportunity to speak about internet amenities in general, leveraging amenities to generate ROI. And so it's an opportunity for us to educate the prospects and customers that we're trying to reach. And in this case, we're leveraging one of our customers to be on the panel with us to speak about some of those benefits. So we leverage those kind of opportunity or those testimonials, those customers in a variety of different ways. That has been pretty successful for us so far.
That's great. And you've mentioned your clients and then the end user customer and your partner ecosystem. And I think you might have about 50 plus vendors that you work with. So how do you keep all that manageable while still driving value with your partner ecosystem and with your clients?
Yeah, so kind of to backtrack on how OnBoard operates, we're the middleman between the provider of the service and then the property themselves. And so we treat our partners as a true ecosystem and not just a transactional list of folks. And so a part of that ecosystem is a variety of different services. So we have a property owner coming to us and saying, "Hey, I know I want to leverage technology or property technology in some capacity, but I have no idea where to begin. I have no idea where to start." Typically, the foundation of that is internet connectivity. And so we're then leveraging our ISP partners, folks like Comcast, AT&T, Xfinity, to get owner-centric terms with that particular owner, help them deploy it. We're that middleman stakeholder, kind of bringing those folks together. And then beyond that, there are also different providers we partner with for smart home technologies, access controls, kind of another tier beyond just basic internet connectivity. Internet connectivity is not required, but is very helpful to have for those additional layered on items. So really it's kind of knowing our customer and knowing the needs of that specific customer, and then being able to activate our ecosystem of those partners based on those customer needs. Like I said, almost always internet connectivity is what they're looking for. And then maybe they add on smart home technology access controls, which a lot of our partners help as well.
I'd like to zoom out a little bit and talk about the environment that we're in right now and how this could be impacting your business. So with rising interest rates, tighter margins, and some regulatory pressure changes, how are these shifts impacting maybe tech adoption across the retail space in general?
Yeah, great question. I think number one, tech adoption is not decreasing, certainly not decreasing. I think what we're seeing is that, to your point, there's some pressures on the market, supply is falling. Property owners and operators are looking to their existing communities. How can I drive success across my portfolio leveraging these existing communities? And they're looking to technology to help do that, to enhance those existing assets that they already have. But I think they need clear evidence that that tech is improving the resident experience, that is not contributing to a worse resident experience. And two, with the supply or with the increased market pressures, they need pretty clear evidence that we're driving an ROI on what we're offering here. And so a couple of things that I see that are happening is it is accelerating tech adoption, but selective tech adoption. And what specifically is going to work for our property, what specifically is going to drive ROI, how can I see real value out of that particular layer of technology being added on? And then when you're looking at what you're selecting as a tech vendor, I also think a huge thing of what we're seeing right now across the board, not just in technology, but kind of across property management, is centralization and making sure that you're centralizing that tech stack that you are offering. They want to make sure that that tech stack is centralized, number one, to be able to provide a cohesive experience to residents, and making sure that the centralization of that technology, the different elements, the disparate elements that are going in, makes sense, and there's no fluff. To your point, it's kind of increased market pressures. There is no room for fluff or extra pieces that they may not need. What OnBoard is able to offer is, number one, that centralization, but equally important is the kind of the consultative approach to this is what we feel makes the most sense for your property. And I would say 99% of the time, connectivity is a foundation of that. And so then layering on that technology connectivity in a reasonable, educated way, I think is really important for owners. But overall, you're right, lots of market pressures, increased market pressures, interest rates, those kind of things. And what we're hearing as the pain points from our customers is, I need to drive increased NOI.
Well, that's good for you guys. You mentioned that it accelerates specific technologies. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what those are?
Yeah, and so I think trying to make sure that they're trying to find the right technology for their property. So smart home technology has been, obviously a lot of folks have it in their home with the Googles and all those pieces, but it's been kind of on the rise for many, many, many years. When I first started over a decade ago, it was kind of like a buzz phrase, and it's still a buzz phrase in many ways. I think what people are trying to see now is, what is the ROI? What does the resident experience look like from smart home technology? And so what I mean selective or specific technologies is, there's a ton out there with smart home technology in particular. Lots of different types of deployments, lots of different types of technologies, all new brands getting into the space almost every day, it feels like. And so it's kind of sorting through that and understanding, like, specifically what is going to work for my property. In a property that is a garden style, where it's individual units kind of spread out in a larger area, which is typically what you would see like in a senior housing community. Well, it may not make sense to do something like a managed Wi-Fi or deployment where it's covering the entire campus, or a smart home technology deployment that relies more on a single infrastructure. It wouldn't make sense in that case. Now, if you're having a high-rise building, it may make sense to have smart locks on every unit. It may make sense to have video cameras, the whole 9 yards, a one access control system in that particular high-rise environment. So it's kind of depending on what the type of environment looks like, what the building model is, and just making sure that you're selective on the specific technologies for that building model to where it doesn't interfere with the experience and actually cause a worse experience. A lot of times that's the customers coming to us, or the prospects coming to us, is that, hey, we implemented all these really cool technologies. It's now up to us to manage it. We can't figure out how to do that.
Got it. It's really just dependent on the use case or the need for that facility.
Yeah, and overall, smart home technology is definitely on the rise. Connectivity has always been a feature, I think, and certainly now it's becoming almost a must-have versus on the rise. But it's just there's a whole ecosystem of technology that could be used, from like valet trash to garage door open. There's a ton of things. Water leak detectors is a good example. Not every community needs one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just being selective on the type of technology you're providing to that particular property.
And you've mentioned, I'd say, top two value drivers is residential experience, and the connectivity is kind of must have need. In your view, and let's just talk about connectivity because that is the biggest need, how does that actually help deliver that promise?
Yeah, I think connectivity, like you mentioned, is foundational to all technology overall, property technology. The resident experience, imagine yourself in the shoes of a resident and you're moving into a property. You have a thousand things on your checklist. There's so many different things that you have to manage on that day. Moving in furniture, I mean, it just, the list goes on and on. And, on top, the biggest need, and I think more and more this is becoming true. I know it would be for me personally. When I'm moving into a property, if I don't have reliable internet access, that's the first thing I'm looking for before any box is unpacked, typically. And so if you already have that available, that internet connectivity available upon move-in, all it is just a quick instruction sheet in your move-in packet, or you get an email sent by OnBoard's team. You log into that dashboard, you automatically have access, you're up and running. That just removes that internet access from that list of to-dos from your move-in checklist. So and as becoming more essential. Like I said, I think the last preferences survey had 90% needed or wanted immediate access upon moving in. So it's a hugely essential need. And not only is it essential by itself, but it also, that layer of connectivity, that infrastructure, powers the infrastructure to support different amenity offers, like smart home, like access control. You can do it without that internet infrastructure, but it's a lot more difficult and a lot more challenging, and creates a worse resident experience. So that is kind of the foundation for everything for a resident experience technology wise. And when that connectivity is done right, when it is seamless, when it is move-in ready, has the potential for everything else to work just as seamlessly.
I'm going to go back to something that you mentioned before. So you mentioned that OnBoard basically takes a consultative approach and really sits at the intersection of the real estate owners, the tenants, the service providers, and everyone else in the ecosystem. Internally, how are you, because that's a lot, aligning, marketing, sales, and product teams around the shared vision or shared story, especially in a category that's still growing and evolving?
Yeah, our strategy is also always evolving. I think what we really lean into there is having everyone understand our core value prop internally, and making sure that's communicated often, frequently, and with clear and concise messaging. And really, our core value prop from our perspective is helping owners and operators unlock the potential of their properties through technology, or these essential technology services like connectivity. And so first is aligning on that core value prop, which is tricky in an organization, to be honest with you. Marketing typically takes the lead there and making sure that everyone is aligned, but it does require a lot of kind of synthesis from a budget, product, sales, operations, and synthesizing that into one viewpoint. And then it's, after we've aligned on that, it's also understanding who our ICP is, who's our ideal customer profile. In our case, it's typically asset managers, owners and operators, C-suite level folks at these property management companies. And we did a lot of work when I started on understanding who those ICP folks are and making sure that we're communicating to them the right way, which is part of creating those messaging frameworks. So if this is our value prop, is something we can all stand behind, what is the messaging framework? How does that dial down into or trickle down into the different ICP folks that we do speak to? And so we developed a really pretty comprehensive messaging guidelines framework by ICP, by the specific customer profile that we're trying to reach towards. All the same for the most part, but with specific nuances that are really important for that ICP. And also understanding their pain points. We discussed about having, those customer profiles and those customer case studies. Those are super helpful in helping understand why they would go with OnBoard in the first place and understand some of those pain points. So making sure that we kind of the company at large understands why people would want to go with us to begin with. Why would people want OnBoard initially? And that's hearing from our own customers, what value we offer from those folks, create, synthesizing that value into a succinct messaging, and then ensuring that messaging is incorporated across every tactic that we're using. So the first thing that we did when I first started was we created a Google site. So a very simple Google site, but we called it the Marketing Hub. And we stored pretty much everything that we had for our internal folks to reference. Messaging guidelines, tactics, everything was there. And so I think my email signature should at this point say, go to the Marketing Hub, because but it does help direct everyone to one single location versus Google Drive folders, which are great, but kind of scattered and hectic.
So I love that, because I work the same way. And I think the messaging and really understanding your ICP and developing persona-based messaging is core. I'd love to know your secret sauce because you mentioned you have a marketing hub, for getting the other teams like sales to really pay attention to that and use it. And how are you really partnering with them?
Still developing that secret sauce.
Okay.
But I think there is no such thing as over communication. Internally, that's even more important. I think when I first started out in my career, I thought, why would I need to communicate this to someone? Like, I feel like I'm doing overkill in the communication piece. And as I've kind of grown in my career and, leadership roles inside marketing, you can't discount how important communication is with folks. Even if it seems like overkill, even if it seems like you're taking it back and forth, there is value to that. You want to move fast and you want to be nimble. And I think our team and our company overall does a really great job of being agile and responding quickly to things, especially in the marketing space. But you still want to make sure you're covering your bases and communicating to the right folks, why we're taking this approach with marketing, what's the value here. I like to start that process with meeting individually with the leaders of all those different organizations: sales, product, operations, account managers. We have a role in the CX side for that, meeting with all those different stakeholders and really just having them brain dump on me and say, here is what I feel is the value, here's where I'm coming from, and just listening. And then taking all those different pieces and synthesizing them in the best way possible, and then taking that back and approving all those pieces. So it takes a little bit of time, but that time investment is worth it, because the more that you can get everyone on board and everyone saying, hey, even if it's just a quick thumbs up, that looks good, the more I think people are actually behind the messaging, and also listening and making sure that they feel like they're being heard. I think we listen in marketing space. We listen to sales a lot, obviously, because, and in my role, I'm a part of the sales organization. So obviously sales is a huge internal client of ours, but making sure that sales is not the only one driving the conversation, and we're hearing from all the different perspectives and synthesizing that in a way that can be delivered to the sales team and then used in that capacity. So I think we're still trying to determine is the secret sauce there. But from my perspective, at least in the years I've been doing it, is communication, and then making sure that you're listening to other folks who may have different viewpoints than a typical go-to-market or sales strategy, and incorporating that a part of your larger messaging framework.
It's definitely relationship building and getting the trust on both sides. So Denver, what's next? And where is the market headed over the next year to year and a half? And what does success look like for OnBoard as the space continues to mature?
I think as far as the market is concerned, I think technology is becoming more and more essential, as I think everyone in every market can realize now. And so OnBoard serving as kind of the management partner between the service providers of those specific technologies and the communities who are using those technologies, I think will become even more necessary and critical to the success of those technology programs. And so I think we want to continue to deepen our provider relationships as well to make sure that we are reaching the right provider so we can have a broad network or ecosystem of those providers for our property owner customers to connect with and to leverage. OnBoard specifically, we have what we call our technology amenity management platform. And it's been operating in the background for years, really since OnBoard started in 2017. But we're starting to roll out features of that externally to our customers. Last year, we rolled out a pre-sale feature. So what that means is owners and operators are able to go into the platform. They sign with OnBoard. We work with them to work with the different service providers. We then present in that platform the different providers and programs that are available from those providers, and individually each property that has access to those providers and those particular programs. And the property owner from there is able to review those providers and the different properties by those providers and sign off. And then when the contract is signed with that service provider, what we're really excited to roll out on June 9th is a new feature which allows our property owners to go back into that platform and review the success of those existing programs at their properties. And so, for example, a property owner may log in and he may want to see, or he or she may want to see the enrollment rate of those residents into that particular program at that particular property. They are able to see also the break-even rate for their revenue break-even amounts at the particular enrollment rate that they would need it for the percentage. They're able to see resident engagement metrics of the number of times that reach out with OnBoard to engage those residents. They're able to see a ton of different information and details about their property. So it really allows them to have tracking analytics for their particular property across the portfolio of properties that they have, which in our space, that has not really ever existed before. You have service providers who are offering platforms to measure things like network bandwidth or the amount of troubleshoot calls or some things like that, which will continue to exist. But what we're able to develop is a platform that allows them to centralize all of these different data points, things like resident activity at the property, ISP information, property management system integrations, centralizing that all in one platform and allowing property owners to view the success of that program overall. So the holistic program, the success of that program versus these individual service elements. So they're able to log in and really track the success of that and then view, in real time, some of the data that we're having being funneled in there. And then we're also leveraging that platform using our services and our expertise to then speak to owners and operators and present them with this data in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think, at the end of the day, that's extremely helpful because that will help them with forecasting and budgeting for, either the quarter or next year.
You're able to log in and see like, okay, I've reached the break-even amount for the number of residents that need to be enrolled into this bulk program. And now we're generating revenue. I'm able to your point, estimate forecasts for the future year. So it's just a really great tool that doesn't really exist in this space right now in this capacity. And we're really excited to roll that out and launch that on the 9th, just ahead of our NAA Apartmentalize show, which is the largest industry event of the year. And so it's a really exciting time to speak to the value of that platform and how that platform can just streamline a lot of this work that the property owners are having to do themselves right now.
Well, that's really exciting. So if someone within this entire ecosystem, whether it's the management company or a particular ISV, how could they get in touch with you or to learn more?
Yeah, so our website is www.letsonboard.com. And we've got a ton of information on there. We've got specific sections to become a partner or to speak to our services from an owner and operator standpoint. So that's definitely the best location to visit. We've got a contact us page on that forum. You can also reach out directly to me. My email is denver.hollingsworth@letsonboard.com. And I'm happy to connect you with our sales team just to learn a little bit more. We also have a LinkedIn page. OnBoard Powered by Conservice is our LinkedIn handle if you'd like to follow us now.
Well, Denver, thank you so much for joining. That was really insightful, and congratulations on the upcoming launch.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was great to talk to you.